All right, what's going on, people? We are back. JV Wins Dogon SS. We have returned for yet another edition of the Conscious Approach video series on YouTube. Major shouts out to everybody checking us out. A major thank you and appreciation to everybody who's been subscribing to the channel. Uh, as I always like to say, I understand the value of making the effort to subscribe to a channel. I do not take your digital currency for granted. Trust me. As someone who does not like and subscribe and comment on 40% of the things that I consume content wise, it takes a major leap for me to be able to hit that subscribe button. And so, for those of you who have been subscribing to our channel, I humbly and greatly thank you and appreciate you for that, because I don't take that for granted. Your digital currency in this day and age especially is almost as valuable as actual currency, and I understand what that means. So yes, JV Wins Dogon SS, we are back once again to kick it with y'all with another set of interesting topics. Before we get things kicked off, I do want to say, as always, we are now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. For anybody who is not in position to check us out on YouTube, if you're at work or driving or at the gym or whatever, otherwise not in position to check out videos, but you can listen to us audio style, check us out on those various platforms. We're just trying to be available any and everywhere possible. Also, we are available on TikTok as well, at Con Approach on TikTok, CONAPPROACH, for anyone who is more active on TikTok perhaps than YouTube. You can also engage with the channel's content over there as well. So we're just trying to exist in as many places as possible in order to continue to kick this logical content for all those who are in appreciation of it. Also want to say, if this is your first time checking us out, feel free to subscribe to the channel if you are so inclined. If you like the commentary in this or any other video and you're not yet a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, because this is how we like to get down. Hit that like button. Let us know what you think about the commentary in this or any other video. We enjoy the feedback and we routinely engage with said feedback, as long as you're not being an annoying troll. So, with that out of the way, we are going to go ahead and get things kicked off. We got a lot of interesting things to talk about on the channel tonight. The first thing that we are going to talk about is more comments made by Michelle Obama, who at this point, Michelle is clearly, I think, Michelle Obama is, I think she's entering the content creator stage of her career. I think she is very clearly venturing into the content creator space. I think that's the niche that she's trying to carve out for herself. She's got her podcast, she's coming out with her book, and I think I think she's trying to engineer or design a post White House career for herself that is somewhat of a media mogul. We've talked about that in previous topics. And in doing that, a lot of what Michelle Obama has to say on her own platforms is going to trend and go viral from time to time. And one of those is this particular example, in which Michelle Obama got onto the subject of parenting and raising children. This is on her own podcast. And she got onto the subject of talking about, the importance of raising kids and how delicate and important and how intentional you have to be as a parent. But one of the more interesting things she also commented on is how grateful or thankful she is that she did not have a boy, that she didn't have sons. And her words were, she's glad she didn't have a boy because it would have been another Barack Obama. I believe that's what she
Hell,
said.
that's supposed to mean.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and get into what she had to say here, but we'll provide a little context first. So this says, Michelle Obama so glad she and Barack didn't have a son. I would have felt for him.
What?
Michelle Obama says she's so glad she and Barack Obama didn't have a son. The lighthearted remark came in the closing moments of a recent episode of the former First Lady's In My Opinion podcast with Craig Robinson, featuring special guest Angie Martinez. Shouts out to Angie Martinez.
Yeah.
In the in the episode, available in full here and or below, Michelle offered extensive advice on the ins and outs of parenting. Make these men ready, Obama said, noting that creating an adult should be an overarching aim of any parent. Get them ready for hurt and disappointment and make them resilient. You can't do that if you're monitoring his friends and trying to interfere and make life easy for him at a young age because he won't be ready for what is inevitably out there. I don't care what race he is. He's going to be a man in the world and there will be hardships and disappointments. He's got to be ready. I know I do that with my girls. Michelle and Barack have two daughters, 26-year-old Malia and 24-year-old Sasha. Continuing her advice, Michelle pushed against an old adage about the difference in parenting sons and daughters. Love your son, but raise them too, she said. Raise them to be as strong as you know he's going to have to be. Teach him how to deal with a traffic stop, but also teach him how to communicate in a marriage and be a listening father and to be a compassionate neighbor and to be a voting citizen. Somebody who's going to pay attention and care about something outside of himself. This led to a playful interjection from Martinez, who joked that Michelle and Barack should have thrown a boy in the mix as parents. I'm so glad I didn't have a boy because he would have been a Barack Obama. No, I would have felt for him. Obama responded amid laughter from Martinez and Robinson, quickly adding, "I got plenty." This November, Michelle Obama is launching a new book titled The Look, as she recently explained to her nearly 58 million Instagram followers. The book is intended as a reflection on my lifelong journey with fashion, hair, and beauty. So yeah, there you have it from Michelle. Once again, she said, "I'm so glad I didn't have a boy because he would have been a Barack Obama." Quote, "I got plenty," and I think what she was saying was, "I got plenty to deal with the two girls that had a boy into that mix." Um, so I'm not going to play any video clips because I don't know if Michelle Obama's podcast has reached the point of G14 classification, and I am not trying to risk any sort of copyright flags because I need our content to be seen by as many people as possible. But all relevant links are in the description of all of our videos as always. So if you do want to watch that episode in full, if you have not seen it, click on the link in the description of this video and you can check it out. The YouTube embed of the entire episode is in this article from Complex. So, Dogon, what did you think of what Michelle Obama had to say about parenting, raising sons and daughters, and her being glad that she didn't have a boy?
Michelle is, for somebody that's supposed to be and I didn't put her here, but she's supposed to be a pillar in our community and, all of this stuff. And I took those statements as it was very generic. So the generic part of raising them as strong as, they would have to be how to be at a traffic stop. At a traffic stop. Why are we going there with it? But of course she got to go there with it because there's these talking points of what it means to be an African American male in America.
Correct. Yeah.
And here she goes again, spewing that rhetoric. Then she attacks it from a feminist angle of, I'm pretty sure she wouldn't want to raise a male. She didn't go there with it, but it comes off as essential, a sense of, she doesn't want to deal with male energy. Part of she didn't mention patriarchy, but somebody that's going to be a part of the patriarchy. So she's grateful for raising her all-female cast, and she didn't want to. Why not want a man? But when you're dealing with somebody that's supposed to be a role model for our women, and they're going to be looking at her, if they're not already looking at her like an Oprah Winfrey for them, just Black woman that's in control, powerful, strong, all of these good things. And they look up to her like a role model. For a role model to be saying that, I don't want no boys, what kind of example is that setting for your followers. So for me personally, I don't care for that statement. It's the luck of the draw. You got to roll the dice, and if a boy come out, a boy come out. You still have to love that boy just as much as you love your girls. So I don't care for that statement. Now, granted, there's people out here that say, "Hey, I don't want no girl. I want my first baby to be a boy. Because there's this whole thing of, raising girls is hard work, and you don't want to run the risk of her being on a pole one day, or some all that other stuff. So people already speak that, okay. But I still think that's one of those things where people just need to grow up, and you're gonna get in life what life gives you, you know. And if life gives you what you didn't ask for, that's what life does sometimes. And you're going to have to still be a parent nonetheless. So, me personally, I don't care for this statement. I think that somebody that is a parent, much like herself, somebody that did hold that was in a very high position in the world, would look at things with a lot more of a humble approach, in the sense of saying that, hey, if I had a boy, I had a boy. And what's wrong with having another Barack?
Right.
So I don't care for that statement. But again, when you're dealing with Michelle, you're getting these talking points that I personally believe that she wants other Black women to feel and talk like. And now that we have Angie Martinez, other women of color to think like. Okay. So I don't care for it. But hey, man, there's crazier things going on in the world. I got more things to say on the back end, but those are just my initial thoughts. So what are your thoughts, man, on Michelle Obama saying that, hey, man, I'm glad I didn't have a boy because I would have had another Barack running around here. What are your thoughts, man?
That's the part that I didn't like, was he'd be Barack Obama. Kind of Michelle Obama, the time. And listen, I still, Michelle Obama has not, she's inching there, but Michelle Obama has not graduated to Simone Biles levels with me, where she's now
She's inching there, though.
effectively on my short list, and I'm going to be picking apart everything that she says publicly. She's getting there, but she hasn't all the way gotten there yet. But despite not being there, I feel as though the couple times that we've talked about her, because I think she says interesting things, which is why I suggest them as topics here on this channel. Throughout the course of the times that we have discussed things that she's said, it occurs to me, or at least it strikes me, it appears to me that she's trying to strike a balance between being a traditionalist and being someone who values traditional sensibilities, but also from a messaging standpoint, still attempting to cater to people who rebuke traditional sensibilities. Because I mean, she's a married woman in a traditional, I would say, patriarchal marriage, and her husband together are raising two young women who both identify as women, and as far as I can tell, are, themselves more traditional in terms of their own sensibilities. So optically, and in terms of all of the things on paper, she's more of a traditionalist. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
But sometimes she says things that appeal to the growing population of those amongst us who rebukes traditionalism. Correct. Because they believe traditionalism is inherently problematic.
Correct.
So when you say things like, and this is how I am interpreting some of her words here. So I kind of feel like when you say things like, I'm glad I didn't have a boy because he would have been another Barack Obama, what I am peeling away from those types of remarks is, I'm glad I didn't have a boy because men are terrible.
That's what I'm saying.
Number one. And then number two, he would have been another Barack Obama once again reinforcing subtly the notion that men are terrible inherently, and that I wouldn't want to raise another person to follow in his father's footsteps
Traditional
and,
man.
and be a traditional man. Yeah. And be a traditional man. Now, whether she intended for it to be, whether that's what her intention was with those comments, I don't know, but that's what I read into that.
That's what I picked up too, man.
And I read into that based upon what her current track record as a podcaster is. Because in previous topics she talked about, well, you already got Barack saying he's in a deep deficit to her for the time that he spent running the country. So for the fact that he was committed to running the country for 2 consecutive terms, instead of you having to compromise because that was what y'all decided to embark on as a family, he's now in deep deficit to you. And then on top of that, what was the other comment that she made that we talked about on the channel? It was something in reference to their marriage, where it was like, I hated him for 8 years, or something that she said like that, where it was like, I didn't really like him very much for 8 years because of X, Y, and Z. So there's all of these kinds of subtle comments that she's been making whenever they're on the subject of marriage and family and relationships that strikes me as the type of rhetoric that is appealing to individuals who hate traditionalism, who hate traditional norms and everything about it. So they don't like traditional masculinity. I'm talking about the population of people who don't like traditional masculinity, who don't like traditional family values, who don't like the patriarchy, who just hate it all. They rebuke all of it. You know what I'm saying? I feel like those are the kinds of talking points that appeal to that segment of the population. And I think she's intelligent to know that when you speak in that manner, that's the population of people to whom you're appealing to.
Correct.
So I feel like it's intentional what she's doing. And I don't know how sustainable this practice is, because you're treading water, trying to divide your time between the traditional folks and the non-traditional folks. And I kind of feel like when you're talking about family values, you got to kind of pick a side. Now, that's not to say that things may not happen. We all have, and I've talked about this, we all have individual preferences when it comes to family values. But at times, often, there are going to be things that occur within your family structure that are beyond your control, that run counter to whatever your preferences are. That doesn't mean you turn your back on or turn a cold shoulder to and move away from those people. They're still a part of your family. You love them unconditionally all the same, but you still have those preferences nevertheless. So from that standpoint, everyone maintains preferences. And in light of the fact that you maintain preferences, there tends to be one side or the other that you stand on when it comes to how you view a lot of these subjects. But it kind of feels like she's trying to have her cake and eat it too. She wants to be viewed as a traditionalist in the old school sense, but then she also wants to be appreciated by the new school folks who embrace social anarchy and think that all manners of traditionalism are inherently bad. And so that was what I took away from when she talked like that. Because why is there such a problem with having a boy? And, I feel like Barack Obama, not that I know him from a can of paint either, it appears as though y'all have raised a successful family up to this point. So why not replicate that model? There are certainly worse off places to be. So, and the thing about it is, she'll be able to play the comments off as a joke or tongue in cheek or, lighthearted. I didn't really mean this or that. Or people such as myself, you'll be able to say that I'm reading too much into it. It's not that big of a deal. But I do believe comments like that come from a place.
Absolutely.
They come from somewhere. She didn't play it neutral. She wasn't necessarily down the middle. She jokingly said, I'm glad I didn't have a boy. And then doubled down on it by saying he would have been a Barack Obama.
Yes.
Yeah. I kind of feel like that was a subtle way for her to placate the new human side of her fan base that actively rebukes traditionalism.
Yeah.
As if traditionalism is inherently problematic, which of course you and I agree on the fact that that is a fallacy. that it is not problematic, and that there is certainly a discernible difference between what constitutes bad faith acting and toxicity from true, reasonable sensibilities with respect to all manners of traditional things, masculinity, family values, nuclear family unit, traditionalism, whatever you want to bring up. All right. And it's incumbent upon all of us as responsible humans to contextualize these conversations and bring up the discernible difference instead of engaging in dangerous rhetoric by leaning on extremism and saying if it's traditional, it's bad by default. So that was my take on that. I don't know where she's going with a lot of this stuff, but this seems to be a common thread with her as
You're
a
right.
podcaster and a media person, where when given the opportunity, she's going to do her very best to marginalize her marriage, marginalize her husband, and marginalize traditionalism when convenient for her. And I feel like this was another instance of that.
Yep. And she's building up a track record, man. You know, there's enough to me, there's enough evidence. There's enough evidence to say that she is I don't think I feel like she's tap dancing to a degree on the line, but she's definitely on the side of new ways of thinking with her logic whenever you're paying attention to what she's saying. And there was a clip floating around. I didn't watch the interview per se, but there's a clip floating around where she was interviewing Marlon Wayans. And and Marlon was talking about the son he sacrificed. And she was bigging him up, about how brave he is and all of that stuff. And um and she was basically saying that it warms her heart and all that other good stuff, that things like that are going down out here. And honestly, bruh, you know what I'm saying? If she did have a son, um, he probably would have ended up like the daughters. You know what I'm saying? Who knows? It would have been the first one in the White House that we're aware of. So, hey, man, this is what she's about. Her co-host says it all. And I know what she on. I know what page she on. I know what she's talking about. And so she can try to tap dance if she want. But I can read between the lines. And so no, she didn't make even though she does things like that, it's kind of like, it's whatever. There's still traditional people that's going to buy into her because of this.
And because of what she symbolizes too.
Correct.
Yeah.
So she didn't go full Monty with it. But for somebody like myself, I can see what's going on. And I don't need personally any more evidence. And a statement like this, that's why I didn't take it lightly, is because that is one of those microaggressions. It is one of those slight digs.
It's subtle, yeah.
Yeah. At masculinity.
Yeah.
I don't need another man around here. I don't need any more man energy. You know what I'm saying? And so she's grateful to have her daughters. And, of course, who's not going to be happy to have their kids? But, I took that as a dig towards all men. Mm-hmm. So, she's not fooling me. And to get back on that conversation of traffic stop stuff, this is why I don't care for them. Both of them, to be honest, is because in the idealistically of what they represent, for how smart they are. One Harvard, one Yale, or whatever the hell the other ones went to, or whatever. Like, they're highly intelligent, Black, successful people. They should know what's up. Lowly old guy that just like myself shouldn't be more on certain topics, or they shouldn't speak on certain things more than them, because they're well educated. They've been very high up the ladder. They've seen how things can go. And so they should be speaking on things that's deeper than traffic violations and how to talk to a cop. But this is the type of stuff that they play, the type of things that they feed into their talking points. To me, is all elementary. And it's that same level of low vibrational wavelengths that Black people in America are constantly being told how to think, a la Tyler Perry. And this is just a political version of Tyler Perry films, where you're talking about the same level of trauma talk, where you're just sitting there going, yeah, and how we get treated at traffic stops. I have to have that conversation with my son. And I gotta talk to my son about blah, 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 and all this other crap, man. Nothing about Negroes out of space with these people. Nothing about that. It's always the same type of stuff. So me personally, I don't care for their level, whatever role that they're playing in our community when it comes to them, whatever image they're upholding. It's just an image. And and the reason why I don't care for it, because to me, they don't elevate anything. Her podcast isn't about elevating the community at all. It's about giving dangerous rhetoric, feminist talking points, and to me, it's very obvious. So me personally, I already know what she about, and I already know what she on. I done seen enough of her podcast to know what her role is, what her thought patterns are. And I think that our people need to elevate above that wavelength. Last thing I'll say, it's like, well, whatever we talk about hip hop and the low vibrational music that is coming out or whatever, to me, this is low vibrational political social conversations, because there's realms to everything. And so within the social political realm, I expect my high intellectual people to be speaking on a very high vibration to get us out of the current vibrations we in, not glorifying it, not articulating it to the T. But that's what these people tend to do. And they're smarter than that. I know they are. They're in circles shaking hands with the right kinds of people to know better, but they still talk that stuff. And that's why I feel like people like them gatekeep knowledge, wavelengths, and all the sort. So no, I don't care for this conversation. I don't care for the stuff that she was saying, because the only thing she wants people to do is, yes, we have to have those conversations with our sons, or how they get pulled over at the traffic light, and how they have to conduct themselves, blah, 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 blah. And no, I don't want no patriarchal toxic man, and blah, blah, blah. Man, come on, y'all. They're supposed to be better than that, but that's all they talk about. So me personally, she's wading in the waters on your short list, but they've been on my short list since 2009. So, and she's yet to disappoint me. She always totes those lines to me.
She'll be there for me once she starts calling people, bullies and bigots. I think once I think when she when she gets to that point, that's when she'll completely lose me. No, I feel what you're saying, and I don't really have anything to add to that, because I agree with most of it. Mm-hmm. But good luck explaining to, I would say, the majority of our community. See, the thing about it is, it's contextualizing a lot of this. What you just described in your mind, and I'm more along your line of thinking in terms of what higher vibrational thinking is, is focusing on paradigm shifts, which remove you from that type of form of thinking. I agree with that. Mm-hmm. The problem is we are not on the same page with defining what high vibration is, because to those amongst us to whom Michelle Obama's words resonate so highly, in their minds, high vibrational thinking is talking about the traffic stops and what to do when you get pulled over, and how to deal with being a Black person in America. like this same old crap that we've been doing now for I don't know, 80 years.
That's civil rights,
which got ratcheted up 5 years ago, right? Mm-hmm. So that, to a lot of people, is, if you look up high vibrational thinking in the definition, for a lot of people, talking about that stuff is high vibrational thinking. So fundamentally, we have different definitions of what that even constitutes, mm-hmm. which is a part of the disconnect. But I would say the majority of us, and I'm not even trying to get racial, like mm-hmm. the majority of us as people, period, who like to typically engage in those kinds of social political commentary would define that as high vibrational thinking. And I think that's the thing that they are keenly aware of. And
Sad.
that's why they keep talking about it. Because they know, despite how like counterproductive I would say it nevertheless is what the majority of those amongst us want to hear. And so you're going to keep perpetuating those ideals because it's what resonates with the majority of us. And you'll never be able to reach a point where you're talking about Negroes in outer space if you're always talking about Negroes in South Central or Watson or Brooklyn, right? So,
Correct.
but the thing is, we don't, you know what I'm saying? It's a catch 22. Talk about the higher vibrational stuff. People are going to say that you sold out or you moved on or you're not down with the community. Languish in it, and all you're doing is perpetuating the same low hanging fruit from one generation to the next with no end in sight. So the problem is we need to get on one accord with what talking about the next evolution of community looks like. Because right now we're fumbling around with different definitions. I, like you, do agree that the next evolution of community and community involvement and just human existence in general is getting more into a mind frame of frequent thinking that involves paradigm shifts away from traumas because we all have them. We
Mhm.
all have them. Everybody has those. The idea is how to not allow them to keep you in that place and how to not languish in them. You don't want to stay in the sunken place.
Mhm.
But for a lot of people, like I said, it's like it's feed the beast. Talking about the traumas is high vibration because you're keeping it top of mind. And I'm not a big fan of that, but it is what it is. And that extends not just to traffic stops or or how to deal or behave or act when it comes to law enforcement. It's everywhere. It's low vibrational talk when you're dealing with family values. It's low vibrational talk when you're dealing with nuclear families. It's no low vibrational talk when you're talking about men and masculinity. It's all of it. Traditionalism. It's all of the different pockets of socio-political commentary that we routinely engage in. So I feel like you're right. The problem is we don't all utilize the same definition of what getting out of that mindset looks like. So until we're all consistent with what that means, we'll continue to be on different pages because what you think is low vibration, the other side thinks is high. And what they think is high vibration, you think of as low, and vice versa. So it is what it is. And I do think that they feed into it by lending their voices to talking like that as often as they do, which I agree with you. I do wish that they would stop.
It's gross.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, and I agree with everything you said, and that's why I believe that their image is just an image because what people believe their image to be is that they should be serving as thought leaders to help shift the paradigm. But to
But
me,
but again,
mhm,
that's from your perspective. And I hear what you're saying, but understand what you're saying.
mhm.
When they do what they are doing, they are being thought leaders moving the community forward by talking like that. That's what I'm saying. So it's almost like a lose-lose. Do you get what I'm do you
No,
get what I'm
I
yeah.
get what you're
So
saying.
it's almost like a losing proposition to even bring it up because fundamentally we're operating from a different foundational understanding of what these things even mean. So when they get on their soapbox and they're talking about trauma, trials and tribulation, and you know fatherless families and
Yeah, all of that.
uninvolved dads, and I don't want to be with a and, oh, by the way, point of correction, the thing that I was trying to think of with Michelle Obama, the other thing that we talked about, she had Tracy Ellis Ross on her show. And
Oh, that's
Tracy
right.
Ellis Ross was saying, I only want to date younger men because older men are toxically masculine.
That's right. That's right.
And,
Yeah.
and, and of course, but the thing is, Michelle was co-signing this. She was
Yeah.
co-signing it.
Yeah.
That was the other thing. So like all of that is like talking about these things. The men do this, and the men are toxic, and traditionalism is a problem, and the cops are looking out for you. And they're gonna pull you over. How to deal with that? How to be compliant? And the world is always against you, and there's nothing you can do about it. So feeding the beast with that rhetoric 24/7 that to a lot of people is them being thought leaders trying to push us forward. Of course, I fundamentally disagree. I think the opposite. I think
Right.
that keeps us languishing in the same old paradigms, but we'll continue to argue back and forth because we're not on one accord with fundamentally what any of that even means.
Yeah, fair, man. But I think because, and that's my point, is that these two are Ivy League educated, and we're just regular schmucks, bro. But we're on the same wavelength. I think they are too, and I think they're playing everybody, and that's my point. Okay.
Right on. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Right on. Right on with that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, now right on, 100%. Hey, look, man. Whatever. The thing about it is, we'll continue to broach these kinds of talking points. But yeah, I feel you. She's on your shark radar.
Yeah,
She's
bro.
very, very close to being on my shark radar for sure. Very, very close. But I do believe that, in my opinion, as a content creator, she is becoming someone who routinely engages in dangerous rhetoric.
I agree.
So.
Crazy stuff.
Hey, shouts out. Hey, look, man. Ain't nothing wrong with having a boy. Ain't nothing wrong with having a son.
Man, come on, bro.
Ain't nothing
Traditional
wrong with
man all the way, baby.
Yeah. I'm not a fan of that, man. It's always like subtle digs at men and masculine. It sucks.
Hey, man,
but it's popular. Those are popular ways to talk nowadays.
You think we should make that switch on the show, bro, and start flip flopping and
I'll shut this thing down before I do
that. Hell no.
Oh God.